Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack the Islamic concept of the divine deadline. We'll be looking at how this framework actually offers some incredibly practical tools for processing grief. When we face a sudden loss, it's so easy for overwhelming emotions to just completely cloud our understanding of why things happen the way they do. But as we dive into the source material today, I think you'll see how it lays out a really structured and honestly deeply comforting perspective on the end of life.
And that brings us right to a massive question, one that totally bridges deep theology with raw human tragedy. I mean, it's probably the most common thought we all have when a loved one is suddenly taken from us, right? If the exact moment of our death is already written in stone, do our choices even matter? Do our safety precautions, our health choices, or even the tragic, terrible actions of other people actually make a difference? To figure that out, here is what we're covering today. First, the core concept of Ajal. Second, destiny, crime, and accountability. Third, the expanding meaning of martyrdom. And finally, number 4, some highly practical tools for grief. Let's get right into it. Starting off with Section 1, the concept of Ajal. So the concept of Ajal basically means that every single soul has a fixed, predetermined term of existence. It is an absolute finality. We're talking about a specified, decreed deadline that absolutely cannot be renegotiated, postponed, or moved up by even a single second. This finality is rooted entirely in divine decree, not in worldly factors. It's a completely unalterable endpoint. But that begs the question, when exactly is this endpoint decided? Well, according to prophetic tradition, it happens before we even take our very first breath. Right at the 120-day mark in the womb, an angel is sent to record 4 immutable decrees, all based on Allah's eternal knowledge. They record your lifespan, your ajal. They record your provision, which is all your sustenance and wealth. They record your deeds, meaning your life choices. And finally, they record your ultimate spiritual fate. So your deadline isn't some random afterthought. It is literally woven into the very fabric of your creation before you're even born. Now, wait a minute, you might be thinking this creates a bit of a paradox. You've probably heard traditions saying that doing good deeds, like giving to charity or keeping close ties with your family, can actually extend your life. So how on earth does that work if the deadline is already fixed? Well, the resolution is actually pretty fascinating. It lies in distinguishing between 2 different terms. First, there's the Ajal Musamma. This is the absolute specified term in Allah's eternal knowledge. And then there is the Ajal Mu'allaq, the conditional or suspended term, which is in the records held by the angels. So Allah's eternal knowledge already accounts for the good choices you're going to make. Because of that, the final specified term never actually changes. The angels might see a conditional extension based on your charity, but the ultimate divine blueprint, that remains completely immutable. Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, destiny, crime, and accountability. Okay, we really have to ask the tough question here. Who is responsible when a tragedy is actually a crime? Think about it. If a person's deadline was already set in stone, how do we handle the ethical reality of a murder or a drunk driver or gross human negligence? Can a perpetrator really just shrug their shoulders and say, well, it was just their appointed time to go? Absolutely not. Islamic theology balances this incredibly well by looking at the specific actors involved. So, from the victim's perspective, yes, they passed away at the exact completion of their decreed timeline. But from the perpetrator's perspective, they are entirely responsible for their illegal, immoral choice. They used their free will to commit a prohibited act, and because of that, they absolutely face retribution under the law. You see, the killer had zero knowledge of the divine timeline. They just chose to violate the sanctity of life. The outcome itself was decreed, sure, but the human engagement with that outcome was a clear act of free will. Historically, Islamic sects really polarized on this issue. On one side, you had the Jabariyya. They took a fatalistic extreme, basically arguing that humans are entirely compelled with zero independent will. They thought we're basically just inanimate objects, or like feathers blowing helplessly in the wind. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the Qadariya argued for absolute human autonomy. They believed we are the sole creators of our actions, completely independent of any divine control whatsoever. But the mainstream Sunni tradition adopts a very practical and honestly much more balanced middle path. They believe that while Allah creates all actions, humans have a real, albeit limited, freedom to actually choose or acquire those deeds. So your agency absolutely exists. It's just nested neatly within the overarching framework of the divine decree. You are 100% responsible for your choices, even as the ultimate outcomes rest with the Creator. All right, moving right along to Section 3, expanding the meaning of martyrdom. What is truly surprising here is how Islamic scholarship expands the concept of martyrdom way beyond the traditional battlefield. If someone passes away from drowning, a terrible fire, a plague, a building collapse, wrongful murder, or even a sudden road accident, they are granted the spiritual reward of a martyr in the hereafter. This framework beautifully honors their immense suffering. It takes a death that might feel totally senseless and cruel and transforms it into an appreciated challenge that carries profound spiritual elevation.
A really foundational concept backing all this up is the phrase Malik Allahe, meaning Allah is the king. Acknowledging that all governance over life, law, and provision belongs to a sovereign, wise creator actually provides immense emotional relief. Just think about the agonizing what-if scenarios we torment ourselves with after losing someone. What if they hadn't taken that flight? Or what if the doctor caught the illness a week earlier? Understanding that ultimate sovereignty belongs to Allah actively challenges those painful hypotheticals. It wasn't the flight and it wasn't the doctor that determined the end. It was the ultimate decree of the king. Let's transition into our final segment, Section 4, Practical Tools for Grief.
We actually see this kind of adaptive grieving modeled perfectly by the Prophet Muhammad. During his year of sorrow, and specifically when he lost his own infant son, he didn't suppress his humanity, not at all. He openly wept and said, "The eyes are shedding tears and the heart is grieved, and we will not say except what pleases our Lord." Just notice the holistic balance there. He fully acknowledges the deep emotional pain and the physical tears, while very intentionally framing his verbal grief within faith and acceptance. It teaches us that tears are a mercy, not a lack of trust.
Taking inspiration directly from that, we get some highly practical tools for cognitive redirection and rational reframing. First, you actively shift your focus from the calamity itself. So instead of endlessly asking, "Why did this happen?" you look to the one who decreed it and ask, "What is my Lord teaching me through this?" Guys, this is a massive psychological breakthrough. It moves you from being a passive victim of fate to actively engaging with the divine. Second, accepting the absolute finality of the Ajal helps limit that endless, agonizing rumination. Accepting it won't bring the person back, but it will bring you peace. And third, it's okay to embrace a healthy existential sadness. It is perfectly fine to long for the hereafter. It just reminds us that we are only travelers here anyway. Now, what is really amazing about this is how modern trauma recovery maps ancient spiritual practices directly onto clinical techniques. Look at dhikr, or remembrance. It functions exactly like mindfulness-based stress reduction by literally calming your nervous system. Salah, the daily prayer, acts as cognitive behavioral pacing, which provides much-needed structure to your day when everything feels chaotic. Dua, or supplication, is basically a form of narrative processing and emotional release. And tawakkul, that deep trust in God, serves as a powerful cognitive reframing tool for distress tolerance. So this theology, it isn't just theory. It is active daily therapy. For those of you out there supporting someone who is grieving, there are 4 highly actionable clinical steps you can take today. Step 1. Show private, genuine concern. Just give them space to be heard without judgment. Step 2. Encourage professional referral. Therapy is beautifully aligned with active faith. They go hand in hand. Step 3. Guide them toward dhikr contemplation. Having them meditate on the names of Allah, like the patient one or the healer, is incredibly grounding. And step 4, help them with legacy building. You can help them process their memories by writing letters or sharing the good that the person left behind. Ultimately, understanding that death comes at a determined time and place acts as a really powerful spiritual anchor. It transforms the chaotic pain of separation into a journey of trust. It doesn't magically erase the grief, but it gives it a solid structure to rest upon. Which leaves us with a final question to reflect upon regarding our own journey. Does your view of the end bring you fear, or does it give your life meaning? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating topic with me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.